Imagine a world so corrupted that only an entire family could save humanity. Have you ever stopped to think about what really happened before the Great Flood? The story of Noah is not just about an ark full of animals. It's a tale of faith, resilience, and decisions that changed the course of history. While many ignored the warnings, Noah stood out, building a colossal vessel at a time when rain was an absurd idea. What led this man to believe in the impossible? And what were the consequences of his choices? With each hammer blow, he defied logic and opposed a society that mocked his mission. Can you imagine the pressure he faced? What did his neighbors say when they saw that ark growing? And what happened when the waters began to rise? Get ready for a journey that goes far beyond the surface. We will explore the details that remained in the shadows and understand Noah's true legacy. Every element of this story brings lessons that still resonate today. So, hold on tight, because the truth may be more surprising than you imagine. When I look at the story of Noah and his famous ark, I can't help but wonder about the world in which this narrative unfolded. The time in which Noah lived was marked by a complex tapestry of cultures and beliefs. The ancient Middle East was a melting pot of mythologies and religious practices. The Babylonians, for example, had their own stories of great floods, like the Epic of Gilgamesh, which features a hero who is also warned by a god about an impending cataclysm. This interconnection of narratives makes me reflect on how Noah's story might have been influenced by these earlier accounts, showing that humanity has always sought to understand natural disasters and the role of the divine. The society of Noah's time was deeply immersed in oral traditions. It's fascinating to think that, before writing became common, stories were passed down from generation to generation, shaping how people understood their world. The figure of Noah, a man chosen by God to save humanity and animals from the flood, cannot be seen only as an isolated story but as part of a broader cultural dialogue that included themes of morality, justice, and redemption. The role of religion in daily life was central, and obedience to God, a recurring theme, reflected a need for control and understanding in times of uncertainty. We must also remember that Noah's story was written in a context where societies were in transition. Agriculture was taking hold, and urbanization was beginning to emerge. The fear of natural forces, which could destroy everything in a matter of hours, was palpable. Great floods, which were a real threat, left deep marks on people's collective psyche. Thus, the narrative of Noah and his ark can be seen as a response to these anxieties, offering an explanation and, at the same time, a hope for survival. Furthermore, the relationships between the different civilizations of the Middle East, such as the interaction between Hebrews and Mesopotamians, contributed to the formation of the Noah myth. The exchange of ideas, stories, and even religious practices was common. Noah's story did not arise in a vacuum but in an environment where myths were constantly adapted and reinterpreted. The similarities with other cultures suggest a universal search for meaning amid chaos. And so, Noah's narrative became a reference point for reflections on morality and humanity's relationship with the divine. Finally, it is important to consider that the social and religious environment was not homogeneous. The various interpretations and adaptations of Noah's story over time reflect the changes in the societies that told it. Oral and written traditions changed according to the needs and concerns of communities. Noah's story, therefore, is not just a tale about a man and an ark but a reflection of the struggles, hopes, and fears of a people seeking understanding and salvation. When we dive into the theological interpretations of Noah's story, we find a universe of meanings and reflections that extend across various religious traditions. In Christianity, Noah's figure is often seen as a symbol of faith and obedience. The narrative shows a man who, amidst the corruption and disobedience of his time, stands out for his devotion to God. This obedience is rewarded with the salvation of not only himself but also his family and all animal species. This idea of a faithful remnant is a recurring theme in the scriptures and invites us to reflect on the importance of standing firm in ethical and moral principles, even in difficult times. In Judaism, the story of Noah is interpreted with a greater focus on divine justice. Rabbis often discuss the nature of the wickedness that led to the flood and how God's decision to annihilate humanity was a response to this corruption. Noah, in this context, is seen as a righteous man in a world of injustice. This duality between God's mercy, which saves Noah, and the severity of divine judgment, which destroys the rest of humanity, is a point of deep reflection. Judaism also emphasizes human responsibility in maintaining creation, raising questions about our role in preserving the world. In Islam, Noah, or Nuh, is an equally important figure. The narrative is similar to the biblical one, but with an emphasis on different aspects of the message. Noah's faith is exalted, as is his patience in the face of the contempt and disbelief of his people. The Quran recounts that he preached for many years, but few listened to him. This perseverance in conveying the divine message, even in the face of adversity, is a powerful example of devotion and resilience. Here, Noah's story also serves as a warning about the consequences of rejecting the divine message. These diverse theological interpretations show us that Noah's story is not a single narrative, but a rich mosaic of meanings that adapt to the needs of the communities that embrace it. Each tradition brings to light different aspects, reflecting their beliefs and concerns. This leads us to understand that Noah's story is a powerful tool for exploring questions of faith, morality, and the relationship between humanity and the divine. It encourages us to think about how our own values and actions reflect the lessons learned over the centuries. Moreover, these theological interpretations provoke us to question how Noah's story applies to our modern life. Are we willing to be like Noah, to stand firm in our convictions and act according to what we believe is right, even when the world around us seems to be in disorder? The story challenges us to consider the importance of faith and individual action in a world often chaotic and unpredictable. When I think of Noah's Ark, the first image that comes to mind is that of a huge boat floating amid an endless flood, sheltering two of each animal species. But looking closer, I realize that the construction of the Ark is a fascinating theme that involves not only practical details but also symbolism and artistic representations throughout history. The Bible describes the Ark as being made of gopher wood, and with impressive dimensions: 300 cubits long, 50 wide, and 30 high. This colossal scale makes me wonder about the engineering and logistics involved in building such a grand vessel in an era that did not have the tools and technologies we have today. The description of the Ark in the biblical narrative is intriguing, as it does not provide many details about how Noah and his family managed to gather the materials and build the Ark. This leads me to imagine how this monumental task might have been. The logistics needed to shelter not only Noah's family but also the animals is a mystery that fascinates scholars and theologians. How did they manage to feed and care for so many different species for so many days? These questions raise profound reflections on the nature of survival and humanity's role in preserving life. Artistic representations of Noah's Ark over the centuries are also noteworthy. From Renaissance paintings to modern films, the Ark has been a source of inspiration for artists of all times. These representations often emphasize the Ark's majesty and the diversity of life it shelters. Observing these works, I realize that the Ark has become a symbol of hope and redemption, representing the possibility of a new beginning after destruction. The concept of a safe haven in times of calamity resonates deeply in our psyche, evoking feelings of security and protection. Furthermore, the Ark is often seen as a microcosm of creation. The idea that all animals, regardless of species, were saved in one place suggests a unity of life that must be preserved. This makes me consider the importance of biodiversity and the responsibility we have toward the natural world. Noah's story and his Ark remind us that preserving life is a collective task that transcends borders and cultures. Finally, reflecting on Noah's Ark, I cannot help but think about the lessons we can learn from this narrative in relation to our own time. We live in an era where environmental issues and life preservation are more relevant than ever. The Ark challenges us to act, to protect our planet, and to ensure that future generations inherit a world that values life in all its forms. This story, therefore, is not just a tale of the past but a call to action in the present. When I think about the flood, I question the reasons behind such a catastrophic event. In the biblical narrative, the flood is presented as God's response to the corruption and wickedness that had taken over humanity. It is as if, in a moment of despair, God decided to wipe the slate clean, to restore what had been lost. Water, which can be seen as a symbol of destruction, also represents purification. This duality fascinates me. What leads a deity to make such a drastic decision? And more importantly, what lessons can we draw from this? The impact of the flood is not limited to physical destruction. It brings with it profound consequences for humanity and nature. There is an aspect of rebirth that permeates this story, as if with every drop of water that fell, a new opportunity was emerging. After the rain ended, the world that Noah and his family found was one where everything seemed different. a scenario of new beginnings. The idea that something can be destroyed for something new to emerge is a recurring theme in many narratives throughout history. This makes us reflect on the cycles of life, the innovate,